Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. Today I have with me Anastacia Anastascio.
Anastacia Anastascio.
My apologies. I was trying. Who I met on Podmatch, and I just felt an energetic connection with her. I already know, is a beautiful soul. I can tell by the energy she has. Um, Former teacher, which I definitely am really curious about. And right now she's a tarot reader, spiritual coach, does Reiki, and a host of other things, and a psychic medium. And one of the things that caught me in your bio was that you had what in the 3D world would be called like a clinical thing with bipolar. And my sense of bipolar is your soul actively trying to get out. And so I want to start there about the journey for that, because the person I see is just so solid and grounded and full of light, and that is just an amazing journey.
Yes, this has definitely been a really insane journey. So I'll start with teaching.
Okay.
So I was a teacher. I taught seventh and eighth grade English. I know. Everyone's always like, how? Actually, funny story. I just went to pick up this microphone because I needed a new one, and I ran into one of my students, and it was like just looking at a different version of me. He's like, Miss Anastasio, and I'm like, who was I? It's so insane. And that was about an hour ago because now he's like an
Wow.
adult, and I am also more of an adult. I don't know, it's weird.
Hmm.
But I did go to school in New York City. I studied literature and philosophy. And after that, I was like, what do I do? And I just decided to be a teacher because I sincerely didn't have any sense of purpose or passion aside from loving to learn.
Hmm.
So I actually studied three more master's degrees after I got my bachelor's degree, which is
Oh,
pretty insane, I know.
yeah.
But I've always loved to learn, to
Hmm.
absorb information is just, I think, what I'm put on this earth to do. And of course, now it goes much beyond that, but I was a teacher, and I've always known that that is what I was meant to be doing in my life.
Hmm.
And during the pandemic, when everything was kind of really just quiet, because in LA, we were really just like shut down for four
Oh,
months.
wow.
None of my friends and I, we didn't go anywhere. And so
Wow.
we really took it seriously. I think we also
Yeah.
took it as a time to just like relax and go within. And
Hmm.
so I was teaching English online on Zoom. And during this time, I was at my lowest point. A couple years prior to that, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder because I just had such crazy highs and lows,
Mm.
which I actually attribute to me not protecting my energy and not learning how to protect my energy.
Hmm.
And I just absorbed so much from so many people that
Hmm.
it would make my moods just fluctuate an insane amount.
That totally makes sense.
So, do I think that the diagnosis is accurate? I don't know.
Okay.
But I do know that it is a part of my journey that I don't like to leave out.
Hmm.
Getting that diagnosis, I was always very suicidal. I had a lot of ideations. I've had a lot of just very low times in my life where I just did not want to be a happy person. It was
Mm.
really that at that point. There was one point where I legitimately told my best friend, I don't even want to be happy because I don't want to be one of those people who just tells everyone that everything's fine and that life is rainbows and butterflies. That's what I assumed spirituality
Wow.
was
Yeah.
because I grew up in a household where my family was Christian. I never prescribed to the Christian values though, because when I was 3 years old, I asked my dad if God created the universe and who created God, and he literally told me we don't ask those types of questions. And at 3 years old, I was like, not for me. I'm out.
Right. Right.
And also around this time, I was seeing spirits in my home and I
Okay.
was feeling all these energies. So I've always
Hmm.
known that I had gifts.
Okay.
So that's kind of where everything started. And I think during COVID is where my spiritual awakening happened.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense because like I know this having the awareness because when I was little, I was astral traveling
Yeah.
and I connected with my team all the time. I grew up in rural Fairfield County, Connecticut. So trying to be spiritual in the 70s and 80s, not really a good thing because I didn't have any resources. And so I just shut it down. And when it came back online, it was like, oh, this is who I am. Not all the things I pretended to be or tried to fit myself into, but this is who I am. So how did that happen? So you're teaching Zoom online
Mhm.
and you're going through this experience of not being connected to the way we used to live. And so how was that experience as you're trying to like navigate trying to still do the 3D thing while your spirit's expanding?
It was not easy. I needed to get to a place of surrender. You can't
Hmm.
do both,
Hmm.
honestly.
Hmm.
I think you need to surrender. And one of the biggest things that I learned in my journey was that we can't really get into the spiritual stuff, the what I like to call upper chakra areas, until we have the lower chakras grounded.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I actually had a therapist, a male therapist, who I really, really resonated with, who took me through cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and we
Cool.
learned. But he was like secretly spiritual. Like I don't think he like realizes it because he was just like so intuitive, and we talked a lot about ego. I read a lot of Joe Dispenza at this time. I read a lot of Michael Singer, and I learned how to tame my ego. I learned how to tame the negative thoughts that were in my mind.
Hmm.
And that was the only way that I was able to then start to merge into the spiritual realm.
Hmm.
So I kind of had to get the day-to-day routines figured out first.
Yeah.
And once I did, I felt spirit opening up a lot more to me. And they're like,
Mm.
okay, now you're ready to receive.
Hmm.
Because I was receiving a lot at the time when I was in this very low place, but it was all very jumbled. It wasn't very clear, the
Hmm.
messages. In astral travel, astral projection, that's something that I've been doing my entire life. But once I really tapped in, like they were like, okay, well, like welcome aboard the ship. It is time to like to get those energetic upgrades and learn. It's actually pretty crazy how quickly my spiritual journey just catapulted forward once I decided that this is what I was going to do.
Mm. That's fascinating. Because mine's been a nice, slow, steady
Oh, not mine.
evolution.
Not mine. For some context, when I was around 3, I would see spirits in my home. I saw angels, I saw light beings. Like I have
Mm.
very vivid memories of like what I believe is a Arcturian in my room as a child. And none of that was welcomed by me. I was terrified
Mm. Yeah.
because of the values that were in my household. Even though
Hmm.
I didn't believe in Christianity, so to speak, I still believed that evil could exist. And I did not know which portals I was opening. So I blocked it off for like
Hmm.
my entire life. And I've always kind of known things about people. I would meet someone and like I would just know, I don't know, like how they're feeling
Yep.
or what they're really thinking, even if they're not saying it. And that's
Hmm.
just something that I always just like kept to myself. It wasn't like a big part of my personality. During COVID, I was on Instagram and TikTok a lot, making a fashion account, and I found this girl who was like goth and she had fashion, but she also had tarot.
Okay.
And I had never picked up a tarot deck in my entire life, but I grabbed a deck and I ordered it on Amazon because I was talking to her and she was like, "You should do it." The strangest thing happened. The deck came to my house. My friend, who I hadn't seen in 4 months, came to my house that same day. And I was like, "Do you want a reading?" And she's like, "Yeah." Again, had never picked up tarot before. I
Hmm.
picked up the tarot deck. I started giving her a reading. The words flew out of my mouth like some sort of cosmic mystery. It was
Hmm.
insane. And when that happened, I literally started selling tarot readings like 2 weeks later. I built a business like 2 weeks later, and that's
Wow.
when everything happened. That's when my spirit guide started to come through a lot. I started to have go on a starseed journey, is what I like to call it, because I really opened up to my star family at this point and worked a lot with them. And I started to create my spiritual coaching program and learn all of these modalities.
Hmm.
And it all happened within a 6 month period.
Oh, that's intense.
It was very intense, but that's what I mean though. What I learned during the 6 month period was that I was so in my crown chakra and third eye
Hmm.
that at some points I was not connected with my body and I needed to merge the two.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
needed to get the Shakti Shiva energy flowing, but I was just like fully in my upper chakras. And so that's why I created my program the way that I did, and that's why I decided to uh this is why I decided that I'm going to learn how to be a human and a spiritual being and not just a spiritual being.
Hmm. Hmm. That is such a critical thing because I mean, I'm an Aquarian, so I I was academic, like all I got a PhD and did all the things. And like when my spirit team started coming in, like, okay, one of the biggest things for you is to ground.
Yep.
And so grounding is like, I don't feel good if I'm not outside every day.
Hmm.
And better if I'm laying on the ground, but right now it's wet in where I'm living.
Same here.
But yeah, it's just like this really fascinating place because I spent most of my life not connected with my body. I mean, yeah, so I got this body, but did I actually feel what was going on inside? No, I just kind of ignored it. And for me, the journey was somatic, um, because I was that disconnected from my emotions.
Hmm.
And again, I mean, I had a longer period of time to integrate it than you. It feels like you were on the fast track.
Yes. Def-
So how many different modalities did you learn in 6 months?
I learned Reiki. I got up to master level. I learned to be a past life regressionist, so I learned past life regression therapy. I learned just how to be a spiritual coach. My tarot, of course, because I really needed to like learn it within those 6 months. Even though I was giving readings, I still
Hmm.
needed to learn it.
Oh
But I
yeah.
think 1 month in, I felt very confident about it, and I was able to really share my findings. I really was learning mediumship during those 6 months too. That was
Oh
very
wow.
important to me. I was working with a mentor at that point
Hmm.
for that. So I just had different mentors and I just worked with different people and I really just like what else was I going to do? It was during COVID, I was at home.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm also an academic. I have 3 master's degrees. Like I just love to learn. It's just who I was. And I was still doing my third master's degree at that time. And it's just I'm a Sagittarius, so like we I think Sag and Aquarius are like they're so similar.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
it's just who I am. So I learned all of those things, and most recently I learned yoga. I did my yoga teacher training
Cool.
last year, but I think yeah, I have pretty much all the modalities down, except for astrology. I've only taken astrology levels 1 and 2, and I just don't feel that I have it yet.
That's understandable. I gotta say though, like from what I'm feeling is like the rapidity with which you picked up on all of this, does it feel like trying to like come up with a way to say it. Does it feel like it was more of a remembrance than a learning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I really think so. I don't think this is my first lifetime where I'm tapping into these things, but I
Mhm.
do think it might be my second. It still does feel very early.
Okay.
I believe that I was an intuitive healer in a lot of my lifetimes, and in fact, I've done past life regressions to know that, but I
Mm.
don't think that I used a lot of divination tools, and I think this is something that I'm stepping into more.
Cool. I love that. Like I will use an example from my life. So I started baking when I was 4.
Wow.
There's no way I would have picked it up that quickly. Like I remember sitting on a chair with my grandma teaching me how to roll the pin and testing the thickness of the dough and like getting it. I couldn't have picked that up if I hadn't done it in a previous lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I'm very past life regression attuned, and I think that that is accurate. I learned so much about the way the universe works from doing my past life regressions, and I think that's absolutely correct.
So, do you think for past life regressions, um, I'm just tuning in. Do we, and this is a differentiation between past life and concurrent timelines, do you think we're simultaneous aspects of self living different timelines that we can draw from because I'm eliminating the illusion of time and space in that question?
That is a really good question that I'm always thinking about, and I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty, but it's one of my favorite shows, and they're always dabbling in that question, the multiverse theory. I Here's what I think. I think that we are definitely living different lives simultaneously, and there each life has different energies that we can tap into. So when we are manifesting, we're tapping into the life or the timeline where we already have that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to draw energy from that timeline. This question, the thing about this question that really trips me up, it makes you think about like, but am I the Anastacia?
Right, right.
That's the part about this question that like makes me fall into a bit of a hole. But I don't, time and space doesn't exist. It's the reason why I'm able to do Reiki and someone's in New York City and I'm doing Reiki from LA and I
Mhm.
can work on their body and they can feel everything I'm doing in their body. It trips me out every time. And I've given Reiki hundreds of times when they're like, I can feel exactly where you are. And I'm like, I'm not even in the same city as you. I'm across the country.
It doesn't matter. I do that with body talk. I get a picture and I
Yep.
tap into the energy and it's like I don't I get it because I know it happens, but my left brain is like, it's like that whole like how does this, because it's the academic brain, right? The academic brain, it's like I want to
I
quantify
know.
this. I want to be able to figure this out.
100%.
And yet it happens.
100%.
And so like for me, when it happens, I'm like a kid in a candy shop. I'm like, oh, this is happening. And I've been doing this for like 3.5 years. And I'm like, still like, oh God, this is so cool.
It's so crazy. Can I give you an example of a past life
Yeah.
regression that would kind of quantify the question that you asked? It's pretty insane. There was one past life regression that I did with a client where she was recalling a time where she's maybe 17 years old. She's walking through a village and she keeps on saying, but no one can see me. No one sees me. No one's acknowledging me. It's like I look at people and they're looking right through me. And I have to really tap into my intuition here. And I'm like, what is happening? So then I ask her, okay, I'd like for you to go up to someone and see how they react or respond to you. And she's like, I went up to this person, they don't respond to me. And I'm like, all right, we need to take it back because my mind's thinking, oh my gosh, is she even alive? Are we in a
Yeah.
past life, but she's not alive? So we actually went one scene before, the last thing she remembered was falling off a cliff and falling to her death. So here's what's
Wow.
happening in this past life. We have gone back to a past life where she is walking around the village as a spirit, does not know that she is passed on, and is literally just like trying to find answers. So we have
Wow.
crossed into a past life where she needs help crossing over. Tell me how that's possible.
That's
Without,
intense.
yeah, I was just like, this is something that I need to write a book on. Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So I helped her cross over, but we went
Wow.
into a past life regression. So that means that somewhere in the multiverse, this woman was walking around and needed to cross over, but it's still her life. It's still that client's life, her past life. So in some ways, she's still able to move on. So yeah, that question that you asked me, I feel that this experience from this regression, it helps us understand that yeah, time is everything's happening at the same time.
I had this is just bringing in something really cool. So a couple months ago, so my mom has dementia, and I used to have a very complicated relationship with her because I had perceptions that she was doing things to me that weren't true. It was for my soul. Um, I ended up, I was working with my mentor, and she said, "Okay, I'm hearing that you need to get a rosary." Now, I'm not Catholic, that one of my friends had, and wear it, but not wear it outside, just wear it under my shirt, and then take water and bless it like it's holy water. Drink it before I walk into my mom's room because my mom, okay, so the thing with my mom, this is trippy. So an aspect of her was a preacher living in Louisiana bayou as a, an old black guy living in a shack that was like, I am not letting go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and just like that whole old Baptist preacher kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of her, an aspect of her.
Hmm.
So we walk into that shack. He's a skeleton. So the skeleton of him, not even the being, the skeleton of him is holding on to my current mom that needs me to put holy water on her knee
Mm-hmm.
to clear out the cobwebs of energy in her existing room. I put the holy water on her, and then I become a channel for her to hear stuff she needed to hear for her soul's healing.
Mm.
And I'm like, I I mean, I felt the shift. I mean, I'm here. I am being this channel for my mom, bringing in this high vibrational content, and she goes out of dementia into full cognizance. And then when I'm complete, she goes back into dementia, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened, but it was, I mean, it was amazing, and there was a lot of healing. And I'm so grateful because her soul is in a different trajectory for whenever she decides to transition, because she's had this massive awareness come in when she was cognizant. But it was like, I don't understand anything.
Yeah, it's wild to me how some people just don't believe in spirituality, or how, or they don't have these experiences. And I think that those experiences are just telling us how magical we are and how much energy is in this universe, and how like there's so many secrets that need to be unlocked. And
Mhm.
once you tap in, it's like this is your world.
Right.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing. That's a pretty amazing story.
Thank you. That was pretty
Yeah.
trippy.
Yeah, I've definitely have some similar stories to that. It's pretty crazy.
What's the wildest one you've experienced so far?
Yeah, the one of the wildest ones would be at the beginning of my spiritual journey. It was a time where I was working with that medium who was helping me tap into my own mediumship skills. And since I was a child, have always felt like there's been some entity around me, watching me.
Okay.
I literally did not go to sleep until the sun came up until I was like 20.
Wow.
Even when I was in New York City and I had class at 8 a.m., I would go to sleep when the sun came up at 5 a.m. I just always felt like there was some presence near me that would not allow me to sleep.
Wow.
And I remember when we started doing work together, one time she tapped into me and she looked at me and we're on Zoom and she's like, there is an energy that looks like you, but she's bigger than you and she is holding on to you and she won't let go and she's very tight on you. So imagine like a gives me it gives me like shivers. A
Yeah.
larger version of me just like holding on to my waist with her like arms like and her legs like wrapped around me, right? This is, she said, a version of myself that I needed when I was younger to protect myself. And now I don't need her anymore. And she was actually keeping my vibrations low so that I could need her. So we
Wow.
actually did an extraction where she helped me release this entity. I had to do some mantras, and then with the healer, she was maybe doing some Reiki. I'm not entirely sure because I was
Okay.
so in a trance, but she released this energy from me, and I could see in my mind what was happening.
Hmm.
This energy, this entity, like releasing off of me, but very begrudgingly did not want to,
Yeah.
lifting up in the air, and then I almost had to like banish her away. And
Wow.
when she did, it felt like the room just like cleared. It was pretty insane.
That
And
is
ever
so
since then,
fascinating.
I was able to sleep without the TV on or lights on. Like I can't believe that I
Wow.
sleep without the TV on now.
That's so wild.
Yeah. We don't realize what we invite into our lives, and sometimes there are things in our lives that we need to release. This was an entity that thought she was helping me, that thought that she
And
was
she was at one
providing me
point.
something. Exactly, but I outgrew her and then she just did not want to leave.
It is so fun. Like this is just geeking me out because I love it. So I had a situation, and this is a live person, a very deep karmic relationship.
Hmm.
He was the first person that eye gazed with me. I didn't know what eye gazing was. So I'm like,
Hmm.
this is amazing. I love it. I didn't know what the connection was going to be. I had no idea how deep of a connection it was.
Yeah.
So we end up parting ways. A year later, he shows back up in my life, first energetically, because he's scared of seeing me, to the point where I get herpes, okay, from his fear of me.
I will need that explained.
He takes substances,
Okay.
okay? So he's open to entities,
Yes. Hmm.
okay? That entity used that connection between him and I from the eye gazing
Hmm.
to attack me with his fear.
Interesting. Interesting.
And because I was like, I'm just like being me, just being present, la 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 la. And all of a sudden I get this fear. I'm like, what the hell was that? Because it wasn't me. And when I tuned in, I couldn't release it, which was even weirder
Mm.
because of the energetic bond we had. And I had to do like some really deep ancient practices that I learned from a woman in France to actually remove the connection from him,
Wow.
because and I hadn't seen him. That's the weirdest thing. Like having like that level of, like, we have no idea how we create connections and how important it is to like cut the cords or at least release the cords
Hmm.
on however deep of a level we need to, because the energy of another can have very profound effects on us.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think it's something that we don't think about either. And that's why we need to protect our energies.
Yeah.
Like it's so important.
I didn't, I mean, I had protections, but like they've gotten like even more intense since that.
Right.
Because it
Right.
was like, wow, okay, so I can definitely be present and be open-hearted and loving, but I'm going to have my Merkaba up and a toroidal field of unconditional love through which I can offer love. And I don't want to shut myself off because that doesn't feel good either. But having that balance of like having that sovereign protection of self while being able to connect is, it's like I never thought of that even like a year ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's super, super important. I don't think that anyone really thinks about these things until they have these experiences.
Hmm.
I mean that's just a part of life, right?
Right.
We have no idea what protections we need to have or how we need to start thinking about the people in our lives or even our own energy until we have these experiences. It's just a part of growing. And a lot of my clients are always asking me, how, when does the shadow work stop? And I'm like, never. That's it. And to some extent, maybe it is a little bit bleak, but like it never stops. We're
Right.
always learning about ourselves.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I have a practice where I check in with, I'm a writer. So every morning I ask my soul, what does it want to tell me in the morning? And I always get these really amazing things from my soul. And a couple days ago, I was in this space where I just like something came in. I don't know what it was. It felt like anxiety, but it was deeper than anxiety. And so I'm just feeling into my body, like all the pathways that are like gripped up, and I'm just letting the light come through and being present to it. And the praise I got for how much I've grown, like, oh, I didn't, and it's not like it's like coming from my soul. It's like, wow, I'm so amazed that you actually have stuck with this so long and that you're actually evolving and you're mastering this, and this is so incredible. And yeah, you still have more stuff to do, but you know what? You know how to do it.
Exactly.
So don't say, oh geez, I still have something else to do. It's like, look at how well you can go through this now.
Yep. Yep, exactly. That actually is making me think of a client that I had yesterday who's really struggling right now. And I'm like, you just need to show up for yourself. You
Hmm.
just need to have consistency.
Yeah.
That's it. It
Yep.
literally is key. And it's hard. I think we have a tendency, it's what I've noticed being a coach and even in myself, when we're feeling really down, we don't use those practices. We use our practices whenever we're feeling good about ourselves, when we should actually be using them when we're feeling low,
Hmm.
because that's what they're there for.
Right.
And so sometimes when I'll check in with my clients and then they'll say like, "Oh, I'm just not doing well." Okay, well, did you do any of the routines that we set up for you? And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, that's it."
Right.
Like we don't realize how much control we have
Hmm.
over how we feel when we show up for ourselves and we do those things like journaling, affirmations, taking daily walks outside. Then yes, it is pretty amazing how much growth we can see. And but we have to be consistent with it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the consistency is really interesting because it's in every aspect of our lives. And I recently, um, I've moved a lot in the past 3 years, and so I haven't perceived that I've been able to have regular routines, but I can still make time for making sourdough and making chai. So like obviously I have time for other things. So I just started walking again a couple weeks ago, and my friend and I are making it a daily practice, which is amazing. Also, I decided I'm going to cut my carbs, which is hard when you do sourdough, but
Yeah.
but adding that in and making myself more mindful about what I eat has completely changed what I'm eating. And so having the discipline to do both is really interesting, because when I do multiple podcasts, the last thing I want to do is be mindful about what I'm eating. I just want to eat because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And to really bring in that space of like, no, you don't have, like, so I make sure that I have things that are healthy for me to snack on
Mm-hmm.
that are low carb, so I don't fall into that trap of this, the easy thing. And that,
Yeah.
having the discipline is, it's like across all levels.
Yep.
Because once we
Absolutely.
realize that we're temples, we have to honor that a little more.
Exactly. Exactly. I think discipline and mindfulness go hand in hand for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. I'm just tuning in.
Mm.
Of all the gifts that have come through you since COVID, what is your favorite?
That is so hard to answer. I mean, honestly, like nothing's better than just like that clear cognizance, that just clear knowing.
Mm-hmm,
That's my
mm-hmm,
favorite gift. The gift of just knowing things. Like, do I need my tarot cards when I read people? Not really. Tarot cards, I tell people they're kind of like how when you see psychics using a crystal ball, tarot cards are that crystal ball.
mm-hmm,
The
mm-hmm,
crystal ball is there as a focal point to just focus energy.
mm-hmm.
The tarot cards are the same. They do provide extra layers of messages, but they actually are more of a blueprint for me to just receive additional information. So like I'll look at the cards, but I'm mostly just pulling in things like from spirit. So like
Right,
the Three of Cups, the way I'm looking at the Three of Cups and I'm like, oh, did your sister just move across the country, right? Like the Three of Cups can't give me that, but
right.
my mind does. And so definitely it's that. Like I can tap into a lot of things about people, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really a great gift.
Have you found that there's any bit of a resistance between your academic mind and your spiritual mind?
Sometimes I think so. I don't think that I'm at the point where I am questioning things too much now because I think that I've spent so much time learning how the universe works.
Mm.
And there are just some things that we maybe can't explain, but I'm really crazy into quantum physics and just
Me too.
learning about I had a feeling learning about how energy works, how light works, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think so much anymore, but I do think that I am hesitant to be around other people who don't have that academic mind. I will say there are a lot of spiritual people who are just spiritual and they don't question. And I am someone who just questions a lot. And that is just how I decide to exist within the world.
I get that. I get that. Like when I started studying body talk, it was like 4 classes and then start practicing. And my left brain was like, consciousness, I don't get consciousness. So I just started sicking it on quantum physics. Like, here, go watch this, go watch this. And it was like this obsessive compulsive need to research, which is just that old program of needing to find the thing. And so that made that part of my brain really happy, because it could actually understand, how like focus really changes whatever it is into something. Like when two quarks are just like this, and then you focus on them, they go boom.
Hmm.
That made sense to me. I
Yeah,
already
yeah.
knew it in my right brain, because like I'd had animals talking to me and I'm just like channeling the information. And I knew that it was affecting them, but my left brain needed that extra little, gotta know what it is kind of thing. And so now it's in a space where it's like, oh, okay, I don't need to question anymore, which is beautiful.
Yes. Yes. It definitely is. I'm actually happy that I'm here too because I get a lot of hours back in the day. Just like not reading or researching or any of that. I'm just like trusting
Mhm. I love
and
that.
using discernment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you like tune in, and I still have tendencies because I'm a foodie where I eat I go towards things that I love to eat.
Hmm.
And what I've been, especially this past week, because I'm in the space where I'm doing a lot of podcasts, I'm doing the thing or I'm eating the easy, the cheap option, the cheat option, not the cheap option, the cheat option. So I'm like, I come out of my room and I'm like, okay, do I really need this? And I just tune in and I get a yes or no. And if I get a no, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just have water.
I get that way too. I have a very tumultuous relationship with food just because my body does not like a lot of things. And so I'm just like, am I not supposed to eat? Is that I don't know.
I had that.
Yeah, so
So
I definitely
about 12 years ago, after a long period of time, I went to plant-based and
hmm.
gluten, dairy, sugar-free. And I was
That's
able to, I mean, it took like 7 years to get to it. So then I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing, period. This is it. I've got it down. I've navigated it. I've mastered the recipes. I've like figured everything out. And then this past April, I tuned in and I had adrenal fatigue.
mm.
And then I heard eat beef and I'm like, eat beef? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And so I'm standing at a deli in Mount Shasta, and I'm in front of the meat counter, and I'm just staring for like 10 minutes, and the deli clerk is like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I need to eat beef again, and I haven't in like 12 years." And she's like, "Well, do you remember what you used to eat?" And I'm like, I liked filet mignon back in the day because it's small.
Mm.
Like I didn't want to eat a lot because like I hadn't eaten it in so long. And so fortunately she had two really small pieces of it and I ate it and I felt such a difference in my energy. And it was grass fed and it was local and didn't have the hormones. And so it felt really energetically aligned. And I prayed over the cow and I thanked the cow and I'm blessing the cow. And I don't eat it very much, but and I never thought I would again.
Hmm.
Like I had nailed the plant-based thing down. So the fact that my body is like asking for this now is really interesting. So I've learned to like, okay, I'm not going to place myself in that category of one thing or another. I'm going to actually tune in more deeply and ask my body what it wants.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't like when people ask like, "Oh, well, are you vegan? Are you like?" And I'm like, I don't label it because I know when I label it, then you put me in a box, and like sometimes I don't like to be in the box. I will say though, I haven't eaten meat since I was like 11 or 12,
Cool.
so it's been a very long time. And a lot of my friends say maybe your body needs meat, but I don't think I ever can. Yeah, I don't. That's not on the cards for me. But I'm always trying to figure out what my body does want. I know
Mm-hmm.
gluten is bad, dairy is bad,
Mm-hmm.
and onions, garlic bad. So I'm like, what can I eat?
Right. Right. Because onions and
Yeah.
garlic. When I gave
Yeah.
up fish like right before I went completely plant-based, I had this temper tantrum because I was like, "What? I can't eat anything." And I remember like I
Yeah.
felt like a
Same.
5-year-old just throwing a whole fit about it. I'm like, "What? You're taking away everything in my life. I can't eat a single thing." And I hear my
Yeah.
spirit team just laughing. Like, really? Really? Because there's all the plants.
I know.
All the plants. And you're complaining that you're giving up like 4 food groups, really, or 5 because I couldn't eat, just dairy, gluten, beef, can't eat poultry at all, can't eat pork at all. And then it was a fish, and that was, and sugar and caffeine. So like big things, right? Big ticket items here. And I was pissed. And I watched myself through the tantrum. I let myself feel all the feelings. And then I was like, okay, if that's what my body wants, because I have to honor what my body wants in that moment.
Yep. Yeah. I totally get that. Being more mindfulness too.
Yep.
Being more mindful about your body's needs.
Hmm.
That's something I'm still tuning into with my body and food.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, this is true.
And it's also like giving yourself the grace to balance that. I know this is interesting. I had beef on Sunday, and I'm sharing this because I had really big downloads that night. Really big downloads that night. I didn't sleep very well, but boy, did I learn a lot about myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because of the food that you ate, is that
I think it was solar flares, it was beef, it was a lot of energy coming through me.
mm-hmm.
So I think it was probably a combination of everything.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So
It's crazy when that happens. It was like sleepless nights. I hosted a retreat in Sedona last month and just like the vortex of energy. You're just getting all these downloads and you're just like, can I just also get an hour of sleep?
yeah, I was facing the heart of Mount Shasta for 3 years.
Yeah,
I
I
did
wouldn't have been able to sleep there.
I didn't very well. That's why when I came back up to Oregon, I was like, not that there's anything wrong with Shasta. I love Mount Shasta, and it's a really intense energy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able like Ojai wasn't able to sleep, Costa Rica wasn't able to sleep, and Sedona. So like any place that's like a spiritual vortex of energy, I just can't.
Yeah, and Shasta's the root. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was the thing.
For sure. For
Oh, well, I am so grateful for our time together. And I'm going to ask
Me
you
too.
one final question, and that is,
Okay.
how can people find you?
Oh, that's an easy question. I'm the spiritual goth on every platform. I'm the spiritualgoth.com and the spiritual goth on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. But I'm most active on Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so, so much for this beautiful conversation and your time and your beingness. And I'm so grateful to have this time with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely, I'm just like, there are some things that I do kind of want to go back to now and revisit for our conversation. Like, I would like to go back to my Joe Dispenza a little bit and like refresh on it. There's still some academic things that I would like to, I'd like to do.
Beautiful.
But yes, I really appreciated having me here and being here.
You're so welcome.